Good morning and welcome to the first MD3 podcast with Mckenna Davis. Mckenna, this is your first shot at fame here with a new podcast, MD3. Can you tell us a little bit about what MD3 is and what we're going to do here?
Yeah, so MD3 is a new lacrosse training program that I have been working on for a while now, and it's just a way to find young lacrosse players and work on empowering them and working on building a championship level type of lacrosse skill. And I'm just so excited to get it going.
Well, that's awesome. You're coming off a big weekend with just finishing up. The weekend prior to the weekend before, you played Northwestern, and this past weekend was your first ACC win over Duke. I wanted to talk a little bit about with you that the top 10 that just came out recently is the Canes top 10. Anyhow, I haven't seen the IWLCA yet, but there's been some movement this week. And let's first start with your game against Duke. It was a big ACC matchup, and tell us a little bit about Boston College's experience with playing Duke this past weekend.
Duke is always a really good team to play against. They're really well coached, and they are really aggressive and really gritty. And I think that's something that the program has built themselves on. But any ACC game is so important, especially when you think about later in the season. It comes down to any type of point on the board, whether it's for or against. When ACC play starts in April, everyone's going to be looking back on games like that. So it's really important to have your best foot forward and play your best game. Even though it's only 5 games in and it's still early in the season, we really wanted to display a strong game. And I think that Duke, obviously, they're really competitive and they don't give up. So our first few quarters were a little bit back and forth, but being able to pull away at the end was huge for us.
And being the number one team for it looks like the third week in a row and coming off national championship, it seems like the target is on Boston College's back. But there's a lot of ACC Big Ten teams that are making their way up the ranks. But let's talk about Yale real quick, because they jumped into the 4 spot, and you do not have them on your schedule this year. But they had a big 3-0 start this year, and they're climbing the ladder quickly, especially with a win over Michigan that they had last weekend. What do you think about Yale and their prowess to get to the top of the rankings?
I didn't even realize Yale jumped to the top 4. That's great for them. They're a really good, solid team. They have some really good threats offensively. I know we played them last year, and they were a tough game, but they're not on our schedule this year. But those Ivy League girls are really smart, so they know what they're doing. So they're definitely a very smart team that knows how to win. Just good for them in the top 4.
It seems like that Boston College really benefited from the Ivy League portal with Morgan Smith and Mia and Maria joining the team from UPenn, and obviously Mia coming from Brown. Northwestern gained quite a few Ivy League players as well. But Yale seemed to hold on to their players and making their way up to the top. And they got a pretty tough schedule ahead of them, so they did a nice job of breaking into that top 4. But the one team that in the top 10 that went down was Syracuse. And Syracuse went into Carolina this weekend with an ACC matchup, and they lost quite handedly, to be honest. I think the final score was 16-8. And coming out of the box, playing North Carolina right out of the box, what do you think that matchup was like between Syracuse and Carolina?
Well, Carolina right now, they're on a hot streak. They are rolling. They're doing really well offensively and defensively. And I wasn't able to watch the game because we had our game. But Syracuse, I think they just didn't have enough firepower to keep it going. I know it was close in the beginning, but Carolina was able to really wear them down and put their foot on the gas. And I think it would have been a really great game, but Carolina being able to pull away at the end made it that score that it was.
Yeah, it seems like Carolina has definitely blood in their eyes this year. Vengeance, they call it, coming back this year after last year's season that they were riddled by injury. And it looks like they're going to be looking to go through the ACC one by one and get some revenge back on some teams that had their way with them last year. And which one of them was Virginia. Virginia finally broke through last year and beat Carolina last year. But Virginia just went up against Stanford this weekend and dropped the game quite handily to Stanford. And that says a lot, about Stanford making their way up. They're popping their head up into at least the top 20 as well now in their first year of the ACC. So, what do you think? You're going to travel out to Stanford in a few weeks to play them. Well, what do you think that matchup's going to be like?
I'm excited to go out there and play Stanford. I know that they are really excited to be part of the ACC and play some competitive teams. So for us to be able to go out there, it's a great opportunity. And Stanford's a great program. They've been solid for the past few years, and they have some great players. So I think this matchup for BC is going to be a really good one, and it'll be fun to go out to California.
And in that matchup, like I said, they did handle Virginia pretty well. And Virginia, a lot of losses. Virginia, they lost Morgan Schwab and the rest of that 2020 class. That was a very powerful class for Virginia. And obviously, you guys lost to Virginia last year towards the end of the season in an ACC matchup. But Virginia remains to be in the top 10. They dropped from 7 down to 10. Do you think they're going to be able to regroup and make their way back up the ACC chart?
I think that they will. I think it's early in the season, and I think that if they can win the next couple of games by a large margin, I think they'll be able to stay well within the top 10.
So Syracuse, going back to Syracuse and them dropping this past weekend to Carolina, they're going to play Northwestern is going to go to the Dome and play on Tuesday. And as we know, Syracuse is young this year, featuring a lot of young players, especially one out of Spencerport, New York, a monster player. Molly Guzak has made her way into the lineup there and has been super impactful. But Big Ten. Coming into the ACC game, this is a big matchup to see where teams fall. I guess everyone's kind of wondering how good Northwestern is, how good is Syracuse, and what do you see from that matchup coming up on Tuesday?
I think it's going to be about if Syracuse in their zone style defense is going to be able to stop the Maddie Taylors and their transfers from the Ivy Leagues. It's all about being able to stop Northwestern's top players, and vice versa. Is Northwestern going to be able to handle Emma Ward? Is she going to be able to handle the freshman girls that have been doing so well, like Melina or like Molly? Syracuse and Northwestern both have great offensive players. So I think it's going to come down to which defense can hold the offense.
Now, as we've seen, Northwestern has played both man and zone against Boston College. Northwestern played a man, and I've watched them a couple times playing zone in their other games. The matchup with Syracuse, it's going to be a tight game. It's going to be a close game, but you're right to the fact of they got to stop the Maddie Taylor show. And you guys, at Boston College, she did score 3 goals and had 3 assists on you guys. How is Syracuse going to prepare for that? Who do you think they're going to drop into their zone? Do you think they're going to be aggressive on her? How do you think they're going to try to stop that show?
I think Syracuse has a lot of trust in their zone, but for a player who is as good as Maddie Taylor is, you have to get out and pressure her a little bit more. So whether that's just adjusting the zone to high pressure on her left side and sagging off everyone else, or even if they do a zone face guard type of look, it's just going to be a matter of how can you prevent her from having a 5-point, 6-point game.
And what about on the other side? They have Emma Ward. We looked through the lineup, and Olivia Adamson was not in the lineup against Carolina. Not sure if she's going to be back in the lineup for Northwestern, but you still got Northwestern's going to have to face Emma Ward. What's the defensive game plan to stop a player as great as Emma Ward?
Emma's amazing to watch and to play against. She is so talented, and I think her game is so different. The way she plays at X and the way she plays with the crease, and her shot is very good. She's a very hard person to guard because she's very shifty and she can shoot from anywhere. So honestly, I'm not sure how Northwestern's going to game plan for her because I think Emma Ward is very talented, especially in that low righty pocket or anywhere down at X. But I think she's going against her old teammate Delaney in net. So if Delaney can read some of those saves that she's practiced against for the past few years, then that'll be interesting.
Yeah, big pickup for Northwestern, Delaney Schweitzer. It's going to be a tough moment for her to come back in and play in the dome, the RCA dome or JMC dome or whatever they call it now. But I'm sure she's pumped up for it, and there's going to be a lot of emotions in that game. So not only do you have all the talent that you have to deal with, but there's going to be a lot of emotions in that game. Northwestern coming into the dome. Big Ten against the ACC for bragging rights and see who's going to climb that ladder. So a lot of teams in the ACC are in the top 10, one Ivy League team. And then let's talk about Florida. Florida did drop the game to Carolina already, but they have a 3-1 record coming out. They're coming in at number 6 on the Kane top 20. So well coached. Reggie Thorpe down there, Manuel Leary. They don't play a really, really tough conference schedule. Their conference isn't that tough, but they play a tough out-of-conference schedule, and they have to remain in the top 10. They have to continue to be successful at that. What do you think the keys to Florida losing so much, because they have lost a lot, are going to be to remaining in that top 10?
For a team like Florida, for being in a conference that may not be as competitive as ACC or Big Ten, it's going to be winning by large margins. You got to win by 10 plus points. You got to be able to bury teams. And I think a team like Florida, who you said is so well coached, they have a lot of talent. Like, they have the ability to do that. But it's a matter of when the game time comes, you have to be able to win by 10 points in order to stay in the top 10.
Yeah, I think Florida is going to continue their dominance in their conference, and the out-of-conference games that they play are going to definitely prepare them for the playoffs. It just seems like they always get stuck kind of in the middle of the road because of their conference games. They can't really break into the top 4 too much, even though they did hit the top 4 last year once, which I was glad to see for that staff and those players. And then the next up, where's Michigan falling? Michigan is 3-1, but they did drop, a handed game to Yale. So I thought that coming into the season that Michigan would be a top 4 team. I still think that after watching them play in the fall, knowing their personnel, knowing their coaching staff, I still think they're a top 5 team. But right now they're, with their loss to Yale, they're hovering back around, 7-8 position. And so what do you think of Michigan? What do they need to do from here on out in order to maintain their prowess of getting in the top 4?
Well, with Michigan being in the Big Ten teams that they're going to play against are really good. And I think that's going to be it'll be good wins for them if they can win in their conference. I think they'll be able to move back up. And like you said, I agree with everything. The coaching staff is amazing. Their players are great. They are a top 5, top 4 team. They're really good, really talented, and well-rounded, solid. Their defense is great. Offense is great. Middies are phenomenal. And I think they're a top 4 team. So if they can just keep winning in their conference, I think that they will be able to move back up.
So talking about the Big Ten Conference, it's kind of like the ACC. It is. I don't think it's as competitive. I think the top 4 teams in the Big Ten are really the top teams. But you go down a little farther. You got Maryland, who's hovering in there at number 9. They've played 3 games, but they lost by a fairly wide margin to Syracuse. But Maryland is young. They've lost a ton. They lost their goalie. They lost Libby May. They lost so many players, and they got Corey Edmondson back, and they got some players back. But where is Maryland going to find their footing in this race to the top?
Maryland's middies have been the heart and soul of their program for so long, and I think that as their team, as they're rebuilding and resetting, it's just going to be a matter of who's going to step up. What offensive threats are going to make themselves known and find their presence on the field, whether that's a midi or an attacker. It's just going to be who is stepping up in these big moments, who's going to take over a game. And you mentioned Corey Edmondson. She's a stud. She's phenomenal. Love to watch her play. But she needs support. She needs her teammates behind her. She needs other threats, people to look for, people to feed and dodge with. And I think if the younger Maryland players can find the confidence to step up, then you'll see Maryland climbing back up there.
Yeah, they're definitely on the rise. In a tough conference, obviously you got Northwestern, and Ohio State's doing really well. They've got some big wins. But the other, the John Hopkins, right? What are we doing with these guys? I mean, John Hopkins, Tim McCormick's got these girls playing. They're fast. Ava Angelo is lighting up the scoreboard, and they're definitely a team on the rise. I think that Hopkins ends up being a top 8 team when it comes to Selection Sunday, to be honest with you.
I agree. Tim McCormick is a phenomenal coach, and to see him kind of find his place over the past few years and be able to really turn that program around and build, it's been great to watch. And I think that the girls really rally behind him and the entire coaching staff. And I think that's something really important, is to have your players following you blindly behind a coach. Like, it's so great to see. And their offense is doing great. They are doing amazing. I mean, they're creative, they're playing fast, they're playing free, and it's fun lacrosse to watch.
How about one of your former teammates, Lacey Downey, leaving Boston College to go to Johns Hopkins, and she was coming out of high school, she was a top 5 player, and she's really found her footing at Hopkins. Watching her, she's lighting up the scoreboard, she's playing offense, she's playing defense, she's smiling, she's having fun. Tell me a little bit about your old teammate and her new experience here at Hopkins.
It looks like she's having a blast. It looks like she's doing so well. She's clearly found her place, and I think that's so amazing. She's been able to get some points on the board. I see her in all the highlight reels, and she just seems that she is really confident and really content and really happy there, and I think that's great.
That's awesome. Bouncing back over to the ACC, you guys, as Boston College, do not play them this year, but Clemson, coming off a big win at Notre Dame. I watched the end of that game. It was a little crazy. But one of your former teammates, Summer Augustino, is doing great for Clemson. And I saw her on the TV the other night smiling after their big win. Clemson making their way up the ranks as well. They're up to they're 12 here on the poll.
Yeah, Clemson's great. I had texted Summer after their Notre Dame win. That was such a great game to watch. That really came down to the last few seconds, truly. And to see Summer out there being as great as she is, doing everything. She's a do-it-all player, do-it-all midi. And I think it's really great to go, to be able to look on the screen and see Summer and see how well she's doing. And I'm really impressed with her. She's been great.
That's great. Yeah, Clemson is a big win for them beating Notre Dame. It's the first time they ever beat them. So I was very surprised to see that, but Notre Dame is, I want to stick to the top 10, 12 teams here in this, but Notre Dame is 2-2, right? They're gonna be there in the ACC tournament, right, ready to play, and once they find their footing, they lost the big 3, right, last year, so but bouncing back in, Princeton, they're 1-1. They've only played 2 games. They're still hovering around the 12-13 mark. Ivy League team. They're going to have to play a tough Ivy League schedule, and but they dropped a tough one. Did they win or beat Loyola the other day? I think they
beat Loyola.
They beat Loyola, so that was their win. And that was big for them to be able to beat Loyola. And I think the Blake kid, the big lefty, she had 6 goals. And, she's a tough lefty to stop, and she's leading that team. And Princeton is on their way up. And but the win over Loyola is huge. So you played Princeton last year in the playoffs. It doesn't seem like they lost a ton of players to the portal. And what do you think of their chances of making their way up?
The Ivy League's really good, and that whole conference is really competitive. So for Princeton to be able to continue to slowly work their way up into the top 10, I think that you'll see them get up there at some point. I mean, you talked about Mackenzie Blake. She's phenomenal. I played with her in the Under Armour senior game. She's great. She's strong. She's got a great shot. And last year, scouting her was really difficult for us in NCAAs, but she's a great player, and the whole team is able to rally behind her, and that's great. And the coaching staff, they know how to win. And I think that they will you'll see them break into the top 10 towards the end of the season.
Now, one team that is climbing super fast is Ohio State. They're 3-0. They've had some big wins. She's Amanda Moore. She is the coach there, and she is building a program based on the Ohio State experience. They just put brand new facilities in. They're in the Big Ten, and she's 3-0. She's climbing. She's coming. So is Ohio State, the one that we're looking out for in the Big Ten that's going to make their way up?
I think so. I think that those coaches are hungry for a winning season, and they want it bad. And you can see it in the way that their players are playing, how bad that they want to win. And it changes the way that you're playing, and you can see it on the field. You can see these girls, just their desire to win and to not let up. And I think that these coaches are doing something special, and I'm excited to see it.
I was expecting Navy early on to make a huge impact, and we'll talk a little bit about more of the Ivy. Harvard just put a butt whooping on Navy this past weekend, and so Harvard, who started very low, and does have a loss to Drexel, who's not ranked. But they took Navy out, and everyone was expecting Navy to be a top 10 team already. And so I know that you got some of your former teammates over there coaching at Harvard. What do you think about their win this past weekend and their jaunt to try to make it into at least the top 20?
I think after coming off the loss to Drexel, they really wanted to turn things around immediately, and Navy was a good opportunity because they were on a travel trip. It was a back-to-back game. And being able to come off of a loss and immediately turn it into a great win just is a testament to great coaching. And Sydney Scales over there, she's so great. I mean, Kenzie Ken, there's so many great coaches. And I really do think that the fact that they were able to come off of that loss and turn it around and turn it into something positive just shows that those Ivy girls, they don't give up, and they're so smart. I can't talk enough about how smart the Ivy League players are. They're so great. And I think that Navy, it just shows that on any given day, any team can win, and Harvard was the team that showed up that day.
Right, and you're correct. They go to an Ivy League school for a reason. They are very smart. They were able to put it together and take Navy out. All right, so let's bounce back down to the ones, the twos, the threes, and the fours here, right, in the rankings. And of course, let's start with North Carolina. Right, they took a beating last year. They got beat by Syracuse by almost 20 goals, but they're back with a vengeance. And offensively, they have every big name in the book. They got the three Humphrey sisters, right? Kaylee Harden's playing. They have Caroline Godin. Riley, I forget Riley's last name, but she's a stud,
Riley
number
Casey.
7. Riley Casey, number
Riley
7.
Casey.
Marissa White. Everybody's back, it seems, plus, Chloe Humphrey, right? In the games that you've watched with Carolina so far, what sticks out to you the most about their offense? What are they doing different this year than last year? And are they going to be able to keep it up?
With their offense, I just think that because everyone on the field at that time is a threat, it makes it defensively, it's so hard to stop. Who is your best defender guarding? Are you going to guard a top midi? Are you going to go guard Chloe? Are you going to guard Ashley? Like, it just comes down to what the coaches decide is the best offensive player to guard. And then how are you sliding? What do the sliding packages look like? So I think that because Carolina has such a stacked offense, it's really difficult to game plan against. There's no right or wrong decision because everyone's really good. But if you are going to shut down the Humphrey sisters, then you have 4 other players that are willing and able to step up and score goals. And I think that's something that Carolina is going to use. And they love that. They are going to love just like having everyone involved. And especially because everyone can dodge, everyone can feed. They're all so versatile that it just makes it so difficult for teams to game plan against.
And, not to mention, their new players, speaking of one is, Katie Levy, who's Jenny Levy's daughter, is seeing a lot of time out there. So some younger kids, Addison Patillo I saw was on the field the other day. She's a freshman. Charlotte Corkins, I saw her. Eliza Osborne was out there, all against Syracuse. And those are all young freshmen that are – me personally, to be honest with you, I didn't think with all the kids coming back with Carolina from injury that those freshmen would get the minutes that they wanted, and they are. So they're playing a lot of offensive players. Carolina is, but they're also playing great defense, and they play that man defense. They're led by Brooklyn Walker-Welch. She is in a knee brace, I see, though, so I think she's coming off the knee injury. But they have they're playing defensively. They got Betty's in goal for them. They got a goalie switch that they moved Betty into the starting spot. So I think that they're building for the big North Carolina Boston College game. And tell me what your locker room's thinking about that, or are you guys focused on Virginia Tech this weekend and not worrying about Carolina? Where's the Boston College mindset with Carolina making such good strides to the top?
Well, we're all talking about Carolina when they play such great teams. Like, everyone in the locker room was like, "Oh, Carolina, Syracuse, Carolina, Syracuse." But as of for like our offensive and like defensive and like our team game plan, our only focus right now is Virginia Tech. and our only focus is on us getting better. And I think that Acacia and our coaches, they do a really good job of like not letting the season get too big. I mean, every day we talk about winning a national championship, but that doesn't mean that we're not focused on winning a regular season title or winning an ACC title, because you have to win all of those first to get to the Natty. And for us playing Virginia Tech this week, it's going to be focusing on how are we game planning for Virginia Tech, but also because we have a long week ahead, how can we get better? Like, what does our offense need to work on? What does our defense need to work on? And then as we get closer, then we can start game planning for Virginia Tech. So we're trying to take it one game at a time while also being able to focus on ourselves.
And that's definitely the smart outlook on it. But, the scuttlebutt, everyone's talking about obviously is Carolina right now. And, well-deserved, but the fact of the matter is that Boston College is still number one. The target is definitely on your guys' back. And, in talking to, other people in terms of Carolina and the ACC and so forth, in order to win a national championship, you got to win the last game, right? It's that simple. But you might have to play Carolina 3 times total this season. If you play them in a regular season, you may see them in the ACC championship, and then to win a national championship, you're most likely, it looks like it, that you're going to, the road's going to lead, to Carolina or Northwestern in my book. One of those two you're going to have to play again, or possibly 3 times. What does it take to win? Last year, Boston College was able to beat Northwestern, but they lost to them earlier in the year. But to run through the ACC, win an ACC championship, some of those times I think you had to beat Syracuse 3 times last year. What goes into, that mindset?
I think I've played Syracuse 3 times every year that I've been here. So if I'm remembering correctly, being able to beat a team 3 times is really difficult. But I think that by the 3rd game, it's just like out of habit. It's like, who's showing up? You've already played each other twice. You're not switching your game plan anymore. Like, who is going to show up and who is going to wear them down? And if you look back last year, we played Syracuse in the Final Four, and it was a close scoring game, but it was also a low scoring game, because that just proves that like the defense was able to hold both offenses. Like, you play them 3 times. There's not much changing that you can do. And at that point in the season, are you willing to change your entire game plan that you've been working on just because you've played a team twice already? You've worked so hard and you've built such great plays and connections, and I just don't think that changing your entire offense or changing a defense just because you want to surprise a team is going to work. You've built an entire set and like an entire team behind this one thing, and changing it just because it's 3 times. So I think that being able to play a team many times is difficult, but it's a great challenge, and it's something that I'm really like grateful that we get to play competitive teams multiple times. It's great for us.
Well, you guys are the number 1 team, and so let's talk a bit about your personnel. All right, let's start in goal. Let's talk about Shea Dolce. We haven't talked about too many goalies yet besides Delaney Schweitzer. Dolce is a rock in there. She was great last year in the championship, all season last year, and you got her back this year. She's a junior. It looks to me, watching the first few games, she's definitely feeling her stride. She's seeing the ball. Tell me about what it's like to have Shea Dolce in goal for you.
Shay's awesome. I love being able to just look down the field and see her net. I mean, in practice, it's difficult because she's really good, but I think it just makes everyone else on the team better, and she makes our offense better. She makes our defense better, and I love being able to just look down the field. I have so much confidence in her and our defense, and I'm so grateful that she's here at BC with me. She's awesome.
And, the defense in front of Shea, right? You got Calasante. You got Baker. You got Smith, you got Cole, you got O'Connor. Lots and lots of tough defenders that right now are in front, standing in a wall in front of her, and they're playing great defense. And going right off the defense that they played at the end of the season last year. And when I say the end of the season last year, I'm saying from after the Virginia game, the Virginia loss, the defense led by your coach Jen Kent seemed to have a different mindset, and they were playing on a string, and it seems like the defense so far this year is already there. At least I'm hoping. What are your thoughts on them?
I think our defense is great. And I mean, I'm biased, but Jen Kent is phenomenal. She really knows how to inspire and rally the girls and get them fired up. And our whole defense has been so bought into her and our game plan. And practicing against them every day is really difficult because they're all so good. You know, if you can't dodge by one, you can't get, like, if I can't get past Lydia in practice, I'm not getting past Shady Baker. They're both so good, and they're both so good 1v1, and they're both so good off ball that the depth that our defense has is so phenomenal. And I think that Jen Kent has been able to build that over the years. And you touched a little bit on her mindset after UVA. And I think that was really when, like, not even just the defense, but the offense really kind of like flipped a switch. And we were like, you know what? Losing isn't the standard of this program. You know, we hold ourselves to a very high standard, and to be able to fully like flip the switch and start to like find our footing again was really great. And it was led by Jen Kent, who was phenomenal.
Yeah, Jen definitely does an outstanding job getting those girls to play, you know, as a unit. But, you know, the defense is so solid in there, but you also have to have some midfielders in there playing defense. And it looks like the 4 midfielders that I've seen so far with Boston College is, let's start with Devin Russell, right? She's playing offense, she's playing defense, she's a freshman. Coming into some big shoes to fill, Cass Weeks and Bell and, you know, Andrea, Ryan Smith, all have left, and now, you know, we got to fill those holes with some freshmen. And so let's start with Devin Russell, freshman coming out of New Canaan, Connecticut, stepped right into a starting role. How's she adapting?
I think Devin's doing really well. She reminds me a lot of like a Belle Smith and Cassidy Weeks mix, just like a do-it-all player who can she can score really easily offensively, and she just defensively, she is really aggressive and she's really hard to go against. And I think she has a lot of confidence, which is so important, especially being a young player on a team like ours. I think that Devin has really been able to step into this role, and she's so fun and she's so easy to play with. And I think that's something that's really important, especially as a midi, like being able to play anywhere, especially in an offensive unit that has so many threats, like just being able to do your job and be able to just work so hard for everyone else is something that Devin does really well. And she has been so great to play with.
I've been really impressed with her defensively. You know, we knew that she could score goals coming in here, but defensively, it's tough to join that defense, and I think she's done a great job with that. And you know, another person, you know, popping in there is Kylie Colbert. You know, she was injured the majority, if not all, of last year with a back injury, and she's back this year, and she's scoring goals, and she's playing defense. What the addition to Kylie coming back? You know, talk to me about how that's helped the team.
Yeah, I'm so glad Kylie's back. It was really upsetting to lose her last year to the injury, because even though she was a freshman, she was doing so well in the midfield. But to see her come back this year, just like faster and stronger, more powerful, it's been such a great journey to watch for her. And I'm really glad that she's back. She's so fun to play with. She's really creative. She does everything to a T. She is just a solid two-way midi who just does everything for everyone else. And defensively, too, I think that she has been really solid on the defensive end, which has been great, especially coming back from an injury. Being able to come back and just play solid defense is really good.
Right. Then you also have Maria and Emma Claire Quinn in there. Emma Claire being a freshman, Maria being a transfer, obviously, from Penn. And they're filling some midfield shoes as well, and which are not easy shoes to fill, but the 4 of them, offense and defensively, have really stepped up and did a great job over the last over several games. And but they're, you know, all 4 midfielders that we just talked about, you know, haven't played Carolina yet. Haven't played, you know, in those types of games. So getting them up to speed, I'm sure for Boston College and the coaches is going to be their number one priority. The one X factor that talk about who's scoring goals in bunches is the A midi Molly Driscoll. Big lefty, fast, strong, has definitely helped in the scoring column for, you know, to make up for a lot of the goals that were lost in graduation. So well, how do you feel about Molly, you know, stepping up and, you know, I think she's got a hat trick in 3 games now.
Yeah, Molly's so fun to play with. She reminds me of, like, I know she played hockey, and I think you can see that in the style of play. She's so aggressive and she's so fast. Her wrists are really strong, so she has a really good shot. And having her come in as the A midi is great. She's been really good in transition. She's been able to score. She's been able to play, make, and feed. And only a sophomore stepping into a big role. Those are like big shoes to fill. And I think that she's doing a really good job with it.
Right. Now going to the attack, the new kid on the block, Mia Moscone, coming over from Brown. I think that she's done a great job in joining the big three, you, Emma, and Rachel. And how's been the transition to get Mia involved in that attack?
Mia's been great. She really, really wants to win. And I think that is so important, is that the mindset of being able to come into a team that has won historically and has been really solid, and just also knowing that like you're here to win too, was a really important thing that I saw in Mia. And her stick skills are great. She's got a really good shot too. I think she's really deceptive, and she's been a great addition to our attacking unit. And it's really just like opened things up for so many people because she is such a good off ball and on ball threat. And coming from Brown, who we do play this year, but we didn't play last year. I mean, I think that she was coached well by Katrina Dowd, and now she's been a great addition for our team.
Okay, now last but not least, the big three. You, Rachel, and Emma. That's where the majority of the focus seems to be on with opposing defenses. And, you guys coming back as a unit for your second year, the cohesiveness, the firepower, but understanding that the three of you are going to draw the most attention from opposing defenses. How's that mindset working as far as, there's a lot of points to be scored from you three. And working together, I think, is the most important thing. But you three being the leaders of the rest of the team, how's that all playing into, the success of the Eagles being number one right now?
Well, playing with Rachel and Emma, I mean, those are my two best friends. So just being able to like see Rachel go and score, like for me able to like pass it to Emma and Emma just go in a goal, or vice versa, like Emma hitting Rachel. It's just it's like a very fulfilling and like happy moment. And I think that defensively, like, you can game plan a player, but you can't game plan a connection. And I think that is one of the best things about those two here, is that you can't stop a connection and you can't stop a best friend trying to find a best friend. And I think Acacia knows that. And she has been really like working on executing that. And teams, there's no way. If I want to find Emma Lipinto, I'm going to find Emma Lipinto. If Emma wants to find Rachel, she's going to find a way to find Rachel. And Rachel, she's cutting, like she's going to get open for us. And I think that is just so special. And that's why like playing with them, it's just so happy and it's such a great moment. And I think that defenses have a difficult time just because all three of us are also very different players. We're not all 1v1 players, and we're not all dodging from high. Like Emma and I like to play down low. And I just think that game planning against three players who have such different styles, but also like love each other and want to play with each other and want to look for each other is so difficult mentally and physically.
That's great. The last two things that are kind of like the elephant in the room with both Boston College and Syracuse. I'll say that about Syracuse too, because we don't know what's going on with Livia Adamson. But when are we going to see Mallory Hasselbeck? And when are we? And we're also, Syracuse is waiting to see Ashley Volpe. You know both those players very well. How are those two players going to impact their teams when they're back?
I'll talk about Ashley first before I go to Mallory. So Ashley, playing with her over the past few years, obviously before she was injured, she is so, I don't even have words. She's unstoppable. She's so good. Her stick skills are phenomenal. Her shot is great. She's so shifty. She's creative. She's fun. She just does things that I've like never seen. And I'm like, wow, like I just am left with no words. So I think that her coming back for Syracuse, I'm thinking it's soon. I think she's a few games out. I don't know if that's accurate.
Yeah,
I think she's going to be a great addition for that offense, especially because she plays Q's offense. She is creative. She's a low crease attacker. She's shifty. Her stick skills are great. And I think that when you look at her, you think of like the epitome of Syracuse lacrosse. And I think that that's so great. And I'm really excited to have her back just so I can watch her play because she's so good. She'll be tough for us to game plan against and for us to prepare for. But I'm really hoping to see her back out there soon. And Mallory she should be back. She She is fully cleared to go as of 2 days ago. She's fully good, ready to go. And I am so excited. It's been a really long time coming for Mallory, and I'm so proud of her. And I am really excited to have her back out in the field with me. And I think she will be great. She's got so much heart and she works so hard and she would do anything to win. And having a player like that who is willing to sacrifice just for a win is something that every team needs.
Well, that's awesome. All right, so finalizing the first MD3 podcast with Mckenna Davis, running through the top 10. Boston College is 1, North Carolina 2, Northwestern 3, Yale 4, Syracuse 5, Florida 6, Michigan 7, Stanford 8, Maryland 9, Virginia 10. I think we're going to see some changing coming back next week for this podcast. I think you're going to see some changes. But any final thoughts on the first MD3 podcast, Mckenna?
No, this was great. I'm so excited to keep us going. And next week, hopefully we see some good changes and mix-ups in the top 10.
All right, and we'll get into some good scoop next week as far as all the different teams. But let's look forward to hearing the MD3 podcast again next week. Great job, Mckenna. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.